Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker and I'm your host. And I am excited to talk about raising your digital IQ today because it's a really important part of working smarter. And that's what we do here on this show is we help you to work smarter. And today I'm excited to have ERP expert with us, Sam Gupta. He has been an ERP thought leader and guru in this digital transformation space for nearly 2 decades. So he's going to bring the real deal for you guys today. And his primary focus has been on ERP and financial systems, but his experience goes much wider than that. I can go on and on about his profile and you can read more about that online, but I want to get into it with Sam right away because I want you guys to have more time with him. So Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, Penny, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to your fun listeners.
So you talk about digital IQ. What does that mean? What's a digital IQ?
Yeah, so the way I look at digital IQ is obviously there are 2 ways of completing a task, right? One is you are going to be completing either manually. Now, this could be from a Fortune 500 corporation perspective or SMB or individual, okay? Any business process or any task that you are trying to complete, you are either going to be completing it manually or you are going to be completing it using some form of digital technology. Now, both of them have its place, okay? The manual effort works well with some process. The digital effort works well with some processes as well. So having that digital IQ, what that provides you is to assess, okay, which are the process where I should be utilizing the digital process versus the manual process. In our experience, I think that's what is missing from a lot of companies, from people when we talk. And for them, technology is very easy to implement. Like that's what they think. And, they just don't understand how, difficult the technology could be to implement. So you need to have that digital IQ to be able to assess whether technology is going to make sense in a specific environment versus not. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. What it brings up for me, right, is that first you have to know what it is that you're looking to, you have to have done the process manually first or know what the process is.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people skip that step is really getting clarity on what their process is. So when you were talking, like, I get it, right? There's the digital and the manual way of completing a task. But seeing that series of tasks as part of a process, I think people don't step back enough to really look at the whole thing. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree with that. And in fact, I go on to suggest that people, when they think of the system, they are always thinking of some sort of computer or tool or software or hardware.
Right.
But the system could be your manual system as well.
Right. It could be a series of steps, right? That makes a system or a checklist or anything. Absolutely.
Exactly. So when you think about the library, if you actually go to library, it's not that everything in library that is working smoothly, it's because of those computerized systems. It's also because of the organized process. If you are going to implement a digital system or digital process in an unorganized process, the result is not going to be as optimal. Because the fundamental assumption of any digital system or the digital process is that you have figured out the physical process first. If you cannot really go from point A to point B on a piece of paper, implementing a tool is a bad idea. And that's where I think the digital IQ is super relevant. You need to understand what digital systems can really do. They cannot improvise your processes. You need to figure your processes out yourself. The tool is just an enabler. It can help you achieve those processes that you have, but you have to simplify, you have to organize, you have to streamline your physical processes first.
Absolutely. It just reminded me of the story of when I was responsible for this technology group and the team came and said, we need a new document management system. Okay, so tell me, and they're like, here's what we've chosen, and we're going to implement this. And they already had an implementation schedule. And I was like, whoa, tell me how you're going to implement this and wasn't working with the previous system that we had and how you're going to improve the process and the way that we work around the documentation. And they had nothing. Like they just wanted to go with it because it was the cool new technology.
Yep.
And, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have your process defined and, how are you going to teach people how you want them to use it? So it just reminded me of that. So I think that's really important. If what I'm hearing you say is that first step of this digitalization is to be able to know and think about what your process actually is.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I'm actually going to add on top of that. When people think of technology, it's just easy to talk about technology, but it's extremely, extremely, extremely difficult to implement these technologies because not only you have to figure out your physical processes, you have to figure out the interaction of your systems as well. The way you would figure out the interaction of your people, the interaction of your processes inside your corporation. Systems are no different. So, for example, in this particular case, when you are bringing a new system such as your document management system, you have to figure out your migration path. Okay, how you are going to move your existing data to your new data, how this system is going to be talking to the other systems. And if you don't have all of that mapped out, obviously the results are not going to be fine.
So why don't people do that from your opinion? And then we'll get into more of the other pieces of it. But if they don't start right, then they're not going to end right. So why does this happen?
So let me give you some data points here. So I'm pretty sure you have heard this before and your listeners would have heard this before as well. Any of the digital transformation, when you look at the success rate of any of the digital transformation initiatives, it's probably going to be 20 to 30%. Okay. 70 to 80% of the digital initiatives typically fail. That's the stat. People can look up on Google. Everybody knows about it. Now, if you actually look at the percentage of failures among the people who are implementing it for the first time, I can almost guarantee this. It is probably going to be 80 to 90%. If you ask a person who has implemented 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 200 systems, they are going to be the most nervous people. They are going to be most conservative people. They are going to freak out as soon as you are going to be talking about implementing a new technology. Now, the reason why they freak out is because they have lived through this life. It's not easy to implement. I'm not saying that you should never implement a digital technology or you should freak out, but their success rate is going to be far higher because they have figured out the first step that you need to do in implementing any technology is go through that process. The first time buyers or the implementers, what they think of any technology, whether you are implementing hardware, software, it doesn't matter. For them, it's like buying a package from Home Depot, flip the power button on, and that's it. I'm done. My technology should work magically. Technologies are not supposed to work that way.
Right. And clearly a lot of people online here are in the corporate world or entrepreneurs, but anyone, even for their personal, they're going to download an app. They're going to do something for themselves to make themselves more productive in an app. 1,000 different apps out there. If you don't know what it is you're trying to do, you're going to have a failure process in that too, right? How many times have you heard somebody say they started this new app and then it doesn't work or it failed? Well, it's not really that the app doesn't work. It's that we failed in using it the way that it's supposed to be used.
Right. In fact, there is massive difference between the personal productivity app versus the enterprise, the app that is going to be cross-functional in nature, that is going to automate the process across the departments. There is massive difference, and people have tendency to sort of simplify that. You know what? I am looking at the software that is running on my desktop. Why is it so difficult to implement an ERP system? It is difficult because a lot more people are going to be involved. A lot more organizations are going to be involved. You have to look at every single, factor. Where are going to be your failure points overall when you are looking at this enterprise-wide app? So again, when you are looking at your personal productivity app, it's easy because you are the only one who's really mapping it. Nobody has to really interpret your processes. You are trying to customize it as for your needs, but the whole organization is not actually dependent upon that. But when you talk about the standardizing of the processes across the organization, that cross-functional alignment among different groups, among different people is where the real challenge is. It's just hard, to be honest. I mean, it's hard in the physical world. It's hard in the digital world.
What are some best practices that you have for people as they're looking into either putting in place an ERP system, which is more organization wide, or evaluating to shift from one to another? What are some best practices you suggest?
Well, so there are, millions of best practices, obviously, because, we have millions of failure points and lessons learned, right? But one of the best practice I am going to bring here is going to be stop thinking like binary. I mean, this is the problem in most digital implementation when business executives are going to come and they are going to say, and I'll give you a story here of one of the businesses that we were working with. They felt that, I am implementing this ERP system for the first time. I have done my research. I am going to download these templates. I am going to, put 500 different requirements. And then, my system is going to be amazing. I don't have to work with a consultant because I have done my research. I have read through the documentation. But in case of the digital requirements, the way requirements work, you need three things. Number one, you need to understand your business deeply. You need to understand how other businesses are going to utilize this process or the way they have this process mapped. That is what is called best practice overall, learning from the industry. None of your people are going to have that because most likely they didn't spend enough time in the industry or they are not spending time as of today because these things are changing on a daily basis. And the third piece of the puzzle is going to be your technology or the tool. There are thousands of ways of implementing these same scenarios. So you need to figure out, okay, what is the optimum way of optimizing it for your business process? So when I look at this requirement sheet from this business that I'm talking about, they have these requirements, 500, 600 different requirements from the ERP perspective. And you know what? The requirement one was accounts payable. Requirement number 2, account receivable.
Wow, that's just clearly defined.
Requirement number 3, human resources management. Requirement number 4, human capital management. Right now, they are going to go to a vendor. Now, there are like million possibilities here when you talk about yes or no. So what is vendor going to do? The vendor is going to say, yes.
Yes, of course we have HR management. Of course we have accounts receivable.
Because it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Right.
So the best practice that I can tell you is, think of this as building a physical product. How would you build a physical product? Let's say if you were trying to create a keyboard or mouse or some of the physical product, you need to know each of the component. You need to know the process step, how you are going to go from point A to point B, what is going to be your quality process. So again, this software is a giant mathematical formula. Just because you don't see it, it's not supposed to be a binary switch. So the more you embrace, the more you understand, the more you dig deeper, the more kind you are to yourself, the more you are kind to your team, the easier the path is going to be. So for me, the best practice is going to be either you research it deeply and spend like 2 years researching this, or work with somebody who has done this 500 times and they know what.
Here, hold on. I totally disagree with you there. Your business has changed, is different. The tool's not even the same. So I don't know what you're saying there, but 2 years of research is going to make you less competitive. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So when I say 2 years, meaning if you are trying to do it yourself, if you have to learn those 3 pillars, which is going to be number 1, you don't know your own business. That is the biggest problem with everyone. Okay. Because 40
you may take 2 years to know your business. That I would agree.
Exactly. 6 months, 9 months, it's going to take probably to know your own business. The second thing you need to know is the best practice, because obviously your business is not really optimized to the way it is supposed to be running. And that's probably the reason why you are looking for ways to improve. If everything is working, then probably you should not be listening to this show, or you should not be talking to people who are doing the digital transformation. So you have the scope of improvement. So you need to look at, okay, if I have 5 competitors or, 100 companies in the industry, how are they functioning? What are they doing differently that they are far superior? They are able to sell the same product at far, cheaper price, and they don't have as much cost as I do. So that is going to be a reflection that you are not going to get unless you talk to somebody who goes to 200 different businesses. And then understanding the tool. Now, when you talk about these ERP systems, they are very complex overall. So you need to know at the line level, what is going to be implication of each of those lines when you are going to make those decisions. So either you can make these decisions yourself, or you can hire somebody who can make these decisions for you. Again, they might not be able to make the decisions for you, but they can at least provide you, okay, if you do this, this is the pro. Pro number 1, pro number 2, pro number 3, pro number 4, and pro number 5. So you still need to make those decisions, but at least, you can hire somebody who knows what they are talking about, and you can assess whether that is going to be the right fit for your business or not.
So I think this is one of those situations where things are often more complex and take more time than we think they're going to take.
Yes.
So therefore, why not hire an expert in the space to make sure that you do it right the first time? Because it's painful. It's expensive to not do it right the first time for this type of thing. As you said, 70% failure rate, or 80% failure rate, that's huge, right? And you don't want that to be you. So I think this is just one of those spaces that it's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's going to be much, much less expensive in the long run. So I would agree that you want to, if you're going to be implementing a new system, that you want to bring in somebody who has expertise.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, what I am going to suggest is it's not that if you hired somebody from outside, they are going to fix the problems magically. You still need to work with them. You need to figure out how to work with them. It's almost like hiring a, building contractor. And if you are not going to be listening to them, they are going to tell you the best practices. Now, if you don't listen to them, obviously they will simply follow the orders. And my friend in the change management world, she actually talks about this concept as compliance culture. So you don't want your vendors to be compliant. You are hiring them because you care for their expertise and what they are bringing to the table. So you really need to figure out how to listen to them and how to really take advantage of their expertise.
Fantastic. So we've talked about best practices.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing when you go into an organization and you start this process? What's the number one thing that you work first to accomplish with them?
So typically, I think every organization is going to be at a very different stage, right? So I can probably, talk about some of these stories from my experience, but, I'll take one example.
Story. That's perfect. Share a story with us.
Yeah. So I'll give 2 examples of one very, organized business and one not so organized business. And they were actually looking for the ERP. So I'll take the example of the positive ones where, these guys really knew what they were doing overall from the process perspective. The CEO that actually invited us, he had implemented at least 6 to 7 different systems in the past, and they were very well researched when they actually contacted us. So in their case, what we really need to do is, they had each of the flow diagram documented, aligned to how we would like to see this. They had, in fact, done research about our company's profile, about my profile. They have listened to a lot of different podcasts, videos. They had done pretty much everything. And by the way, when they spoke to us, they were like, what? This is not very perfect. Obviously, we are looking for you to come here and tell us, what all we can do to align this. We want you to be our mentor in streamlining these processes first before we can talk about a specific tool. So they simply took out the tool from the process mapping exercise, and even though they were super expert, like if you actually look at their warehouse, their manufacturing facility, everything was so well drawn. As if you walk to an airport, that when you go to the airport, everything is just so systemized because they spent a lot of time in figuring out how airports are supposed to be done.
Right.
Now, if you go to a small to medium-sized business, they are not going to spend as much time in organizing their facility, organizing their processes. So in this particular case, these guys were very well organized overall from process perspective. That was reflected on the paper that they had spent a lot of time in figuring out how this should be replicated on the paper. And by the way, they were continuously proving always that, you know what, I am going to use this as a training tool. So whenever you are going to train your new employees using the same tool set, obviously you are going to come to know that, you know what, there are a lot of gaps in this process. So I need to make changes so that it's a living and breathing document. Now, the second story, this particular company, when we went there, I mean, for them, they simply wanted a code of the ERP system. Okay. And I'm like, okay, you want a code? We provide you a code of the system. Do you know which system you are going with? And they were like, I have selected two. Or in fact, if you were thinking that, you know what, I am actually not going to go with the second one. We are very firm on the first one. And and I asked them, okay, what the reasoning to select that first system? And they were like, you know what, I have done my research. My IT person did a lot of research and he feels that this system is the ideal for our business. Then I asked him, okay, did he tell you anything else? Why is it ideal? The IT person mentioned, you know what, I have been doing this for 20 years. Okay, the reason it is ideal is because I am telling you this. Okay, I said, okay, do you have any sort of requirement?
So they didn't give you any specifications, no criteria. So they really didn't have it well defined. They kind of went from, hey, we've always used Microsoft, so we're going to use Microsoft or something of that nature.
Exactly. I mean, there was no objective criteria. It was very, biased assessment, in my opinion. I understand that sometimes you got to trust your people. I completely get it, right? But at the same time, you at least have to have some sort of criteria so that you are able to justify yourself that you are not going to buy something that is going to be completely unfit for your business. And even if you actually analyze these 500 requirements at a very minute level, I will still be nervous because I'm the guy who's typically implementing this. And I don't want to overcommit the sales process because it's very, very, very hard to implement these IT systems. If you actually overcommit, then it's going to fail. And then you are going to get bad name in the market that nobody wants, right? But sometimes it's just hard, when businesses are not really willing to listen to the experts.
Right. So listen to the experts. So is there anything, and we're coming to an end, I think we got a good feel for, some of the best practices at a high level, things to look at to bring that objective criteria and really define things, know your business, look at the interfaces and those types of things, and then be careful in your selection of your technology. Is there anything that you want to leave the users, the listeners with before you go? I mean, obviously we'll have them hear where they can find you and whatnot, but is there any piece of wisdom that as they're undergoing this process, in addition to what you've given, that you would give them?
Yeah, I would definitely leave your listeners with one thought because I know that your show is about productivity. How can we be more efficient? And when we look at the efficient productivity, you are always thinking about the continuous improvement. But when you talk about the system implementation, you typically don't think that, this is actually going to be your continuous improvement, or, you are going to be continuously investing money in this particular initiative. But when you look at the digital initiatives or the digital transformation initiatives, they should be part of your continuous improvement agenda. You should have the mindset that, I am improvising myself on a daily basis. I am trying to evolve my KPIs, and those KPIs are going to be enabled by either the physical process or the digital process, depending upon which is going to be the right fit. So again, have that continuous improvement mindset always, even with the digital system, is what I would like to leave your listeners with.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sam. And where can people get a hold of you? Website or anything giveaway that you might have for them?
Yeah, super easy to find. I'm a super popular guy on LinkedIn, social media. Even if you Googled Sam Gupta, the first profile, the LinkedIn profile is going to be mine. But, if you want to go to website, that's going to be wbs.rocs is the name of the website. There's going to be a contact form. Just put it in. And the business name is Elevate IQ, which is ELEVATE-IQ. And the site name is elevateiq.com. Just select the contact form there as well, and we'll get in touch.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Penny, for having me. Really appreciate you.
And thank you all for listening. So here's the tough love that you got to hear today is that 70 to 80% of the technology projects that are being started are failing. and they're failing because you're not taking time to step back and to think and work your process and understand your business and how your business flows and all the interactions and interfaces. And even though that might seem tedious and it might seem like you don't have the time, this is absolutely critical for you to grow sustainably in your business. And you want to make sure that you're spending the time and bringing in the expertise so that you do it right the first time. There's nothing more productive than doing things right the first time, people. All right. That's how we work smarter. So thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zaker, and this is Take Back Time. See you in the next episode.
Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.